All right, so due to the increasing crime rate, Prime Minister Andrew Holness announced states of public emergency in 7 police divisions. They are St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover, St. Andrew South, Kingston Western, Kingston Central, and Kingston East. Here to discuss how effective this can or cannot be is Peter Bunting, the Shadow Minister of Security. Good morning. Welcome
Morning.
to Smile Jamaica. It's morning time.
Morning, Senator.
Morning.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, thanks.
I want to read something that I saw in the paper this morning, and the headline says, "Children of privilege shielded from SOEs," says Bunting. And the first paragraph says, "If the young men being detained under the states of emergency were children of privilege, the outcry from Jamaican citizens would be so strident that the government would be forced to immediately revoke them." I hope that quote was correct, sir. And if that is so, why did you say that, sir?
Because we live in 2 Jamaicas, and we suspend the rights and privileges of those who live in the disadvantaged Jamaica at will. We don't respect the liberty, which is really the liberty of the person is one of the most fundamental constitutional rights. And when we declare a state of emergency, the main power given to the security forces is the main additional power is the ability to detain someone for the entire length of the state of emergency without charge, which means they don't need to have a shred of evidence that this person committed a crime. And if my child or your child or anybody who has links and who has privileges and who is wealthy in this society had to endure a week of being detained without charge, we would be outraged. Yet we tolerate persons. There was the case, for example, of Everton Douglas et al., who were detained without charge for hundreds of days until the court ruled that they should be released and that their detention was unlawful and unconstitutional. And so we notwithstanding that the fact that the government has appealed that ruling, we believe that to continue to use it in the identical circumstances that the court has already ruled against, we think that's wrong. We think the state of emergency, as it has been used in the serial and routine way for over 3 years in the last administration, was ineffective. Every single year, the number of murders we had were hundreds higher than during the previous PNP administration, when we used no states of emergency and minimized even the use of things like curfews and cordons and search.
So what is your recommendation then, sir? Because I tell you, the citizens are crying out for something because crime really is at an all-time high. And so they feel like, well, it's better than nothing. What would your recommendations be?
Well, first of all, the government has perpetuated what I call the big lie. For too long, they've tried to convince the public that the only way for these communities who are under stress from criminals, the only way for them to get the area saturated with police and soldiers is through the declaration of state of emergency. That is absolutely not true. There is sufficient powers in ordinary legislation, in the JCF Act, in the Defense Act, for soldiers to be deployed in support of police all across Jamaica. And the fact is, it has been done every single day for the last 30 or 40 years, every single day across Jamaica. So, yes, I was the one who pointed out 2 months ago in my State of the Nation debate the acute and unacceptable situation in the 4 police divisions in the corporate area where the state of emergency has been declared. I pointed that out 7 weeks ago, and it took 7 weeks for the police to act, during which time close to 70 additional persons were murdered just in those 4 police divisions. There was nothing stopping them from blanketing that area, a tiny area, less than 40 square miles, responsible for a third of all the murders and shootings in Jamaica. They could have blanketed that area with police and military 2 months ago.
Yep. Senator, everyone has an opinion on this, but why? Why is crime so high? Why are we killing ourselves? And I say ourselves deliberately because we are. But why? In a nutshell, because I know we could go on all day and find the different reasons, but in a nutshell, what is going on in our country, sir?
It is not coincidental that the areas with the most terrible social conditions, with poor housing, with sewage running in the streets, with no social workers, poor schools, no regular garbage collection. It's no coincidence that these are the same communities that are generating recruits for criminal gangs. We have to invest in these communities. We need a state of emergency to deal with the social conditions. It can't just be continually about occupying these communities in a kind of military fashion. The young people there feel like they're, somebody in Iraq or Afghanistan when it was under military occupation by foreign powers. That can't be the standard for how children grow up in these communities. We need investment, social interventions. There are short, medium, and long-term social interventions and investment that can take place and which made a difference. We've used it before. We're not reinventing the wheel. During my term in office, when the budget was at of what it is now for national security, we were getting better results because we took a balanced approach, not just crime control, but equally crime prevention. And crime prevention is about those social intervention and social investment measures that I mentioned.
One of the things, Senator Bunting, I believe is a lack of resource. I've been hearing over time and so many years that we don't have enough police, that the conditions that the police work under are not the best in terms of addressing crime. What about those areas?
Well, this administration, this JLP administration, certainly can't complain for lack of resources. They have increased the recurrent budget of the JDF by over 100%. They've increased the capital budget of the Ministry of National Security by 1,000%. So, of resources. It is the misallocation of resources that is causing the problem. The JDF, the military, has got the lion's share of those resources. The JCF is complaining. In fact, we've had a number of interviews by the chairman of the Police Federation this week pointing out the inattention to welfare issues. The persons are demoralized, they're demotivated at the start of this state of emergency, which is going to require them to be out on the streets for long hours and exacerbate the issues which they're complaining about. They said they're even having to buy their own uniforms and boots from their already strained salaries. The size of the JCF has remained the same from I was minister. In the meantime, the JDF has increased by thousands. And reason is that this government is committed to this military style of policing, and they've gone all in on it. And in order to utilize it completely, they feel they need these states of emergencies. They're talking about a state of emergency for 7 years continually. That is unacceptable in any constitutional democracy, in any Western-style liberal democracy.
Thank you, sir. Great to have you with us this morning. Stay safe, sir. God bless you and your family.
My pleasure. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man.
And to your listeners.
Yeah, man. Senator Peter Bunting, Shadow Minister of Security.